Welcome to today's deep dive. It is Friday, April 10th, 2026, and today we are digging into something that really challenges how we think about leadership.
Yeah, we're looking at a comprehensive guide titled Leading Small Groups with Impact. And it is, well, it's definitely a paradigm shift.
It really is.
Yeah.
And, our mission for this deep dive is to extract the blueprint for true influence from this text.
Right, to figure out how someone actually transitions from just gathering a crowd of followers to reproducing a whole network of leaders.
Exactly. Because whether you are running a corporate team or a ministry or just a community group, building an organization based entirely on your own personal effort is exactly like running on a treadmill.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Right. Like you have to keep running day after brutal day just to keep the belt moving.
Yeah, and the moment you stop, the moment you take a vacation or get sick or just burn out, the entire machine grinds to a halt.
It's just exhausting. But building leaders, that operates on the principle of compound interest.
Yes. The growth eventually outpaces your own daily input, right? It's the difference between a machine that needs constant fuel and an organism that actually reproduces itself.
Which is exactly why this text is so countercultural right now. I mean, we live in this era that is completely obsessed with digital reach and viral scale and...
Gathering the largest crowd in the shortest amount of time.
Exactly. But this text argues for the exact opposite. It argues for deep, proximity-based relational investment.
Right, which forces a pretty uncomfortable question for anyone listening today. Whether you lead a business or a family, the core diagnostic question is, are you building dependency or are you building legacy?
Oof. Yeah, that is uncomfortable.
It is, because it forces us to reevaluate our default metrics of success.
Okay, let's unpack this, because, why do we automatically equate a full room with a successful mission? Isn't a big crowd inherently a good thing? Like, it means the messages resonate, right?
Well, what's fascinating here is that the author doesn't say crowds are evil, but they highlight the danger of what they call the additive mindset.
The additive mindset. Okay, what does that mean in practice?
So addition is when one charismatic leader gathers many followers. It feels really productive because, the numbers are going up.
Right, more bodies and seats.
Exactly. But structurally, it creates a highly fragile system. Addition asks, how many people came? But multiplication asks, who is being formed to teach others?
I see. So it's like the difference between a single massive pillar holding up a roof versus a load-bearing network of smaller beams.
That's a perfect visual.
Like one crack in that main pillar and the whole thing comes crashing down. If the leader is sick or leaves, the system collapses.
Exactly. And the text points to a specific blueprint to counter this, a single sentence from 2 Timothy 2:2.
Okay, what does it say?
It's a letter from the Apostle Paul to his protege, Timothy. And Paul says, what you have heard from me, entrust to faithful people who will be able to teach others also.
Oh, wow. So that's 4 generations in one sentence.
Yes. Paul is the first, Timothy is the second, the faithful people are the third, and the others are the fourth.
That's incredible. It's like a chain of custody for leadership.
It really is. And the text roots this deeply in theology. It argues that this isn't just a corporate strategy, but it reflects the nature of God. From Genesis saying, be fruitful and multiply.
To Jesus saying, make disciples.
Right. God's design is generational continuity, because addition just produces consumers of ministry.
People who just show up to be fed.
Exactly. But multiplication produces stewards, people who carry the message to the next link in the chain.
Okay, so if multiplication is the goal, let's look at history's greatest multiplier. The text points to Jesus, right?
It does. And his architecture for achieving global multi-generational impact is surprisingly narrow.
Right. He didn't build a massive institution. He built a micro-community.
He prioritized people over programs and depth over breadth. Yes, he preached to crowds, but he invested his life into the 12.
There's a phrase the author uses here that I love, with witness precedes witness.
Yes. That is such a profound concept. Jesus didn't just hand them a textbook of theology. He actually lived with them.
It's that proximity again. They didn't just hear his lectures. They saw how he lived, how he handled stress, how he treated people.
Exactly. And the text traces us right into the early church model, specifically looking at Acts 2.
Right, where they had this dual structure, the temple for large gatherings and the house for small groups.
Yes, and they devoted themselves to teaching, fellowship, prayer, and breaking bread. Which, just means eating meals together.
But those meals were actually a massive deal back then.
Oh, absolutely. The Roman Empire was rigidly stratified. Rich, poor, Jew, Gentile, slave, free, they did not mix.
So sitting down at the same table was basically a quiet revolution.
It was the great equalizer. The table forced the theology they heard in the big temple gatherings to become a lived social reality.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because it's the difference between a massive lecture hall and a working kitchen.
Oh, I like that.
Right. In the lecture hall, you hear about the recipes, you take great notes. But in the kitchen, with a small circle, you actually learn how to cook by burning a few things alongside the master chef.
That perfectly captures the paradox the text presents. The kingdom often begins where the crowd cannot see.
Wow.
Yeah, crowds are excellent for proclamation, casting vision, but circles are essential for formation.
Because transformation requires that proximity.
Yeah.
You need repetition, participation,
Yes.
and loving correction, which just cannot happen in a crowd.
You can't correct someone you don't know.
Exactly. Which means the person leading that circle has to radically change their identity. You can't lead a circle the same way you hype up a crowd.
No, you can't. The text redefines the leader not as a performer, but as a developer. And it uses this incredible image of a spiritual midwife.
A spiritual midwife. That is such a specific image.
It is, because think about what a midwife does. She doesn't create the life. She doesn't take center stage. Her entire job is to help life come forth from someone else.
Right. It's about drawing out what's already there.
Exactly. It's servant leadership.
Mm-hmm.
The text talks about Jesus washing the disciples' feet. It wasn't weakness, it was an exercise of secure authority. The cross is the ultimate shape of leadership.
Giving yourself up so others can thrive.
Right. And this ties into the difference between shepherding and teaching. Teaching delivers content. What does God say?
But shepherding cares for the soul. How is this person actually living in light of what God says?
Yes, because you can have a group with perfect teaching, but if there's no shepherding, you just get educated people with broken private lives.
Which brings up what the source calls the hidden curriculum. This is huge.
Well, the hidden curriculum is everything.
Yeah, because a small group teaches through tone, through habits, and how questions are either welcomed or silenced by the leader.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it shows that true authority is rooted entirely in character, not position.
Right. People only truly follow because of trust.
And trust is built when a leader serves before leading, listens before instructing, and models before expecting.
So for you listening right now, think about the best leader you've ever had. Did they make you feel like they were the star, or did they make you feel like you were capable?
That's the test of a midwife leader right there.
So once a leader adopts that mindset, how do they actually draw out that potential?
Well, the text gives us actionable methodology. It focuses on coaching and imparting lifestyle.
Okay, let's look at coaching first, because this shifts the leadership from just telling people what to do to actually developing them.
Right. It requires asking probing, open-ended questions.
Like instead of, did you do the reading? You ask.
What part of this passage challenges you the most and why? And then, this is the hardest part for most leaders, you have to allow for silence.
Oh man, the awkward silence.
It is awkward.
Yeah.
But if you rush in to fill the quiet, you short-circuit their processing. You have to let them wrestle with the answer.
But who do you invest that energy into? Because the text warns against just picking the most charismatic person in the room.
Yeah, charisma is deceptive. Instead, the text says to look for three things: faithfulness, teachability, and initiative.
Oh, that's interesting. So someone who is reliable, willing to be corrected, and steps up without being asked.
Exactly. Those are your future multipliers.
Okay, so that's coaching. What about imparting lifestyle?
This is the idea that truth has to be made visible. The leader's life is the true curriculum because people replicate what they observe more than what they hear.
And there's a four-step progression here, right?
Yes, it's very clear. Observation, assisted participation, independent action, and multiplication.
So they watch you do it, then they help you do it, then they do it while you watch, and then they go teach someone else.
That's it. It's a classic apprenticeship model.
But wait, let me push back on this practically. What if the leader isn't perfect? If my life is the curriculum, don't I need to have it all together before I lead anyone?
That is the universal fear. But the text explicitly rejects the need for perfection. Yes, authenticity is what's required, not perfection. Disciples actually need to see how a leader repents when they mess up.
Oh, wow.
They need to see how you handle stress and how you ask for help.
So pretending you have it all together is actually counterproductive.
Completely. The text points out that Jesus called fishermen to be fishers of men long before they had any competence. Identity precedes performance.
You speak their new identity over them before they are even ready for it?
Exactly.
But then eventually you have to let them take the wheel. And this brings us to the hardest step, the most dangerous bottleneck in leadership: control.
Control is insidious because it feels like leadership.
Right. It feels like you're just maintaining high standards.
But it's actually leadership in disguise. It produces short-term excellence,
Mhm.
but it completely kills long-term legacy.
Because the cost of control is dependency. The text uses the story of Moses in the Old Testament here, right?
Yes, Exodus 18. Moses is leading an entire nation, and he is acting as the sole judge for every single dispute.
Just a massive line of people waiting for him all day.
He was burning out. It was a catastrophic bottleneck until his father-in-law, Jethro, tells him to delegate.
Because trust is the currency of multiplication. If you can't release responsibility, you cap your organization's growth at your own personal capacity.
Right. Releasing responsibility means you have to redefine success. Success is no longer, did everything go perfectly? It becomes, did someone grow in the process?
Which means you have to allow for failure.
Yes. Failure isn't final, it's formative. You have to create an environment where mistakes are safe learning moments.
So what does this all mean in practice? It's like teaching a kid to ride a bike.
Oh, that's a perfect analogy.
If you never let go of the seat, they never
Yeah.
crash, right? But they also never actually learn to ride. You had to endure the scraped knee to get the confident cyclist.
This raises an important question, though. How do we balance high standards with that messy process of learning?
Yeah, how do you not just let everything fall apart?
Well, trust doesn't mean abandoning the person. It means being present to debrief.
Ah, the feedback loop.
Exactly. You sit down after they lead and ask, what did you notice? What felt challenging? That's exactly how Jesus handled the disciples. He sent them out to minister, they made mistakes, and then he debriefed with them when they returned.
So the debrief is where the actual growth crystallizes.
Precisely.
Okay, so let's bring this all down to the ground level. If you listening right now are hosting a group next Tuesday, how exactly should it be structured to make sure all of this, the connection, the coaching, the shepherding, actually happens?
The text provides a very clear 4-part framework for designing a transformational group. You have to balance structure with flexibility.
Okay, what's the first element?
The first is connection. You have to build relational warmth right away. Use icebreakers and storytelling to invite honesty. If they don't speak in the first 10 minutes, they won't share deeply later.
That makes total psychological sense. You have to thaw the room. What's number 2?
Scripture engagement. But the focus here is strictly on application, not just interpretation.
So less, what is the historical context, and more, what does this mean for my life tomorrow?
Right. The text uses the parable of the Good Samaritan. Jesus didn't just tell a story, he challenged them. Go and do likewise.
Okay, so connection, scripture engagement. What is the third element?
Discussion. This is about encouraging dialogue over monologue. This is where you use those open-ended questions and practice the discipline of silence.
Facilitating rather than lecturing.
Exactly. And the fourth element is accountability and prayer. Fostering spiritual depth, bearing one another's burdens, like it says in Galatians 6:2.
It's so practical. It's not just a free-for-all hangout where you eat chips, but it's also not a rigid academic class.
No, it is an intentional laboratory for life change. And what's beautiful is that this structure directly mirrors the Acts 2 early church model we talked about.
Fellowship, teaching, prayer, and meals.
Yes, and the brilliance of this specific framework is that it is simple enough to be transferable. Complex systems centralize control, right? But simple, reproducible rhythms empower multiplication.
It means almost anyone can learn to lead it, which is the whole point. So let's quickly synthesize the journey we've been on today. We moved from the exhausting trap of additive busyness to embracing the intimate circle model of Jesus.
We redefine the leader from a performer to a servant and a coach.
We learned how to impart lifestyle through authenticity. We embraced the scary leap of trusting others and releasing control, and finally mapped out that practical 4-part meeting structure.
It's a complete blueprint for transitioning from addition to true multiplication.
It really is. So for you listening, whether you are running a business team, a family, or a community group, look at the people around you right now. Are you hoarding the responsibility, or are you actively looking for their potential and handing them the keys?
Think about the timeline of legacy. The most profound, world-changing impact you will ever have might not be a decision you make or a big speech you give.
Right.
It might be a quiet, clumsy conversation you have with an ordinary person in a small circle. Someone who goes on to change the world long after your name is forgotten. The question is, are you willing to be the hidden roots that produce someone else's harvest?
That is a phenomenal thought to sit with. And I want to add one more provocative question to that for you to mull over. We live in a world of remote work and digital networks. If deep formational change truly requires proximity and shared tables, how do we adapt this model for the digital age? Can you be a spiritual midwife through a screen?
Oh, that is the challenge of our generation right there.
It really is. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Start building leaders today, and we will catch you next time.